Once in 7th grade PE, running circles inside the gym with my buddy Austin, Simple Plan was playing on the radio. I was one of those insufferable little people who felt like they got a lot of social status from finding music before it went mainstream. So as we slow jogged along in our incredibly flattering gray and black PE shirts and shorts, I kept singing the words at him to show that I knew them. Never one to be shying away from the truth, he bluntly said, "You feel cool because you know the words to I'm Just a Kid?" I did, but I also now felt this unpleasant mixture of embarrassment and confusion. Embarrassment for obvious reasons, but confusion because up until that moment, I had never actually contemplated the possibility that obnoxiously singing every word to a hit song about having no friends by one of the only Canadian pop punk bands in the early 2000s to gain widespread US notoriety was in fact not a cool thing to do. I was reminded of that story while studying about a 19th and 20th century mathematician named David Hilbert, who discovered something so fundamental about the world that it actually is still highly relevant to modern AI and computer systems almost 100 years later. But this story is actually about his greatest defeat. But don't worry, we'll circle back to his successes in a future video because they're worth telling. See, Hilbert was a German. In fact, he was so exceedingly German that he managed to try and fit even math, the most formal of the sciences, into a framework literally called formalism. He dreamed of a perfect set of axioms or rules that could one day be given to a machine to solve math, like any and all of it. This was actually one of the main inspirations for Alan Turing, who built the world's first computer in World War II. Hilbert was essentially looking for one algorithm to rule them all, as it were. But alas, there was an Austin in his life too, and his name was Kurt Gödel, but more on him later. For now, the thing to remember about Hilbert's perfect formalist system for math is that it was defined by two things: being complete, useful for solving any math problem, and consistent, meaning it couldn't lie or contradict itself. In the late 1920s, as he neared retirement, he started to get a little cocky. See, like 7th grade me and my obsession with being early, he too longed to be the first to know things. So much so that in 1927, feeling like he was almost there, he published a paper called Foundations of Mathematics, which teased that his students at the prestigious Göttingen University had solved the hardest pieces of his formalist system capable of explaining reality. See, Hilbert didn't just want his theory to be true, he needed it. He had spent 30 years being early. And the thing to know about being early is that it can be increasingly uncomfortable the more time that passes without everyone else arriving at your conclusion. Picture showing up to the party of an acquaintance 15 minutes before it starts. And now they've got to make small talk with you while they continue to set up last-minute decorations and silently question their friendship with you. So Hilbert started doing what many people would do when they feel self-conscious standing so far out in front. He went on a PR campaign to promote his unfinished theory of everything. On the surface, this might look like an open and shut case of narcissism, but there was an external factor to consider as well, namely competition. Hilbert wasn't the only person trying to figure these things out. He even had an arch nemesis named L.E.J. Brewer. Now, Brewer led a group called the Institutionists. They believed that math was just a messy tool that humans had made up rather than a perfect rule book that never breaks. To Hilbert, this was hearsay. Then came the betrayal. Hilbert's star student Hermann Weyl defected to Brewer's team. The pressure on Hilbert became a boiling pot. He didn't just want his theory to work, he needed it to save his reputation. Then came a twist in the story so good that you would insist it's fiction if you didn't know better. In September 1930, the math world met in a city called Königsberg. It was the Super Bowl of logic. This is where Kurt Gödel comes back in. He was neither a formalist like Hilbert or an institutionist like Brewer. His beliefs about math fell into a school of thought known as Platonism. Platonism views math more as the source code for the universe that we discover rather than something wholly of human design. This was very different from Hilbert's system of formalism. As a reminder, the two things that formalism claimed was that it was complete, could be used to answer any question, and consistent, that it never contradicted itself. But at a lesser attended presentation of the Königsberg Conference, Gödel changed the game forever by releasing his theorem of incompleteness. Honestly, the concept goes a little bit over my head, but the best way that I've found to understand it is something that I've dubbed the printer paradox, and it goes like this. Imagine you have a perfect printer. You give it one job, print every true statement. But then you hand it a piece of paper that says, this printer will never print this sentence. If the printer prints it, the sentence is now a lie. The perfect printer just lied. If the printer doesn't print it, then the sentence is true, but the printer is too weak to prove it. Either way, the perfect machine is now broken. The tragedy? Hilbert didn't hear the news in time. On September 8th, literally the day after Gödel gave his presentation, Hilbert gave a famous radio speech. In it, he shouted, "We must know, we shall know," basically ensuring that his system would soon be known to the world, all while the world's smartest people were already whispering that he was wrong. Now, that story just feels so timely to me right now, and I think this week in particular, with Microsoft beating earnings yet still seeing a 10% decline in its stock. Microsoft is the financial backbone behind OpenAI, if you didn't know, and Amazon laying off 16,000 corporate workers, many of them engineers. We're in a similar moment. Sam Altman is our modern Hilbert. He and many other leaders in AI have been on a global PR tour for the last couple years at this point, selling us a formalist dream called AGI, Artificial General Intelligence. He needs it to be a perfect algorithm to rule them all because he's already bet the entire company and his legacy on it. Sam Altman recently committed to buying about 40% of global production of special computer cards needed for AI development called DRAM from companies Samsung and SK Hynix. The reason is simple. Sam and the other hyperscaler AI companies such as Google and Anthropic believe, like Hilbert's formalism, that AGI is a perfect system that we can finish if we throw enough computers at it. See, AI is trained through brute force repetition on pattern matching, and the reason companies like OpenAI are called hyperscalers is because they believe that we can just scale up the number of computers to throw unprecedented power into training, and eventually AGI, or artificial general intelligence, will just pop out the other side and solve all the world's problems. Eventually, the system will be finished, just like Hilbert thought he could finish formalism. And it's still anyone's guess if that will prove to be true or not, but one thing is becoming increasingly clear with leading indicators like Microsoft's historic drop in share price and the massive tech layoffs. The market is growing tired of waiting.